this regular meeting to order at 5:20, just as a point of information. Trustee Haas is running a little bit late. He will be here once we get into executive session. So based on that, I am going to make a motion, be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 5:20 from this meeting of July 24th, as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of 1A, appointment of a public employee or official.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Leo?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
I think the last time we put it in a shared file.
What a show off. I'm gonna steal it.
I guess.
You can actually feel what's walking around
I don't think they got a picture.
Then I can move it to the server.
They talked to me for a while.
Still gonna get tried.
Correct.
I think it was 13.
We'll call the regular scheduled meeting of July 24th, Plain Township Board of Trustees to order. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have the agenda before us. Does anybody have any corrections, deletions, editing? Seeing none. First of all, I will say that at 6:15, we do have a public hearing regarding our alternative tax budget. So whatever business is going on, we'll try to get that out of the way as close to that as possible. So first thing we have is the Sheriff's monthly report. Sergeant Conant.
How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, thank you for asking. Before you should have the June monthly report. We had a increase as opposed from last year for our calls for service at 1548. Pretty much everything was up. Our crashes were up 4% with 72 crashes, 41% increase with our crashes with injury with 12. Our alarms were down, so that's good. We only had 100 alarms, 18% decrease, and our traffic stops and citations were up again. Pretty much every month they've been an increase as opposed to the previous year. 308 traffic stops, 193 citations, 66 arrests with a 35% increase, and 136 vacation checks for the month. Detective Ross had 9 assigned investigations. He was able to close 4, a hit skip crash, a burglary, a missing person, and a robbery. Then we have our year-to-year and then our yearly overall since we started doing this. So we have another incline, for 2018. I think that's going to be the trend. It's been every month this year so far.
It makes sense with all the new deputies, more deputies.
Yeah, significant increase and a significant increase again. I like to see the traffic stops and citations,
Yes.
more proactive,
Absolutely.
duties from the guys on the streets and a good number of vacation checks as well.
Questions? Anything else to add? This would be the point in time where if anybody in the audience has any questions or concerns for the sheriff. Seeing none. Thank you, Sergeant.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks. Okay, that takes us to new business.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to approve an authorized payment to Computech for the purchase and installation of a backup server switch for disaster recovery to be installed off-site at Central Fire Station in an amount not to exceed $2,865 from 101826G.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
This was already covered.
Correct.
Eric over the couple prior meetings.
Yeah, we've been working on this
Yeah, for a long time. Just if anything would happen to this building, or we kid, but it has been hit in the past with lightning, and you will have a way to head to the central fire station, work out of the training room, not lose anything from the township, still provide services.
And they have obviously adequate backup power and on and on.
We have the we have the redundant power system. The only thing that we would be lacking, and the chief and I have been discussing it, is remote access to a broadband connection, like our fiber line. If a disaster happened, they took out our Time Warner line, and we've been talking about some LTE hotspot, group hotspots, like 10 or 20 users, that type of thing.
Sure. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And I do want to thank Eric on the record for all of his help. He's really dug into this, found a really good solution, and very appreciative.
Yeah, we're not spending nearly what we did on the server that we have in-house, because this is a redundant, temporary, if we had to bring it back up, so we're at about half the cost that we would have been if we would have replicated that server.
Outstanding, thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, item number 2 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize payment to Kaivac Cleaning Systems in the amount of $7,964.73 to be taken from 01D06242 touchless cleaning systems.
I'll move on new business number 2.
I'll second
It's
it.
been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Steinberg and I have been looking for a way to improve the cleaning at all of our facilities, specifically restrooms. We have a couple outdoor restrooms that are heavily used. We were looking for a solution similar to what schools and hospitals have because of the use. And, you know, I don't think anybody here would want to clean it on a Saturday. I don't even want to get into any kind of description, but we're looking for a way that is touchless but heavy cleaning. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Steinberg because he actually did the, the trial of it with Joe Snyder.
So the unit is both electric and hooks up to a water system. Actually, excuse me, let me rephrase that. Fills with a water system. It comes with pressure washing, a vacuum to suck up all of the wash down material after you scrape it, with a brush, and you can then empty your tank full of the dirt and grime into a slop sink to properly dispose of it. It comes with its own cleaning bottles that are regulated for both pre-soak and soak, so that you're not overusing soap and all of that to solve the problem.
Is this a weekly thing,
It'll be more of a daily.
a daily thing, and then, like, are these costs, how long does one of these last? Do they last longer?
They've got hour trackers on them, so we'll know how many hours we're getting out of it. But they're actually portable too, so we can take them place to place.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the reason for 2 is because we have so many areas in the township, we don't want to wear the heck out of one when you're talking all our fire stations, all our buildings, all our grounds, especially all of our parks. And the real concern was a lot of the incidences happening at the park, not having our employees, even with gloves,
Yeah.
you know.
Obviously from a safety issue.
Sounds like a nice
Too many
product.
unknown substances out there that
Yeah.
we do not want our employees with any kind of contact.
Right.
So it just makes sense that we put them in a position of safety by having this equipment for them to obviously make our restrooms run.
Yeah. And they tested it on a clean restroom, and the amount of dirt and gunk and grime was shocking because it looked clean on the surface, but this is super clean.
It actually
And
cleans
the-
inside the fixtures and the
Yeah, it goes up
creases and
inside.
stuff, and like the nozzles of the
Nice.
sinks and stuff.
And the rep lives right here in Plain
That
Township.
is
Our
correct.
guys will know how to use this.
Yep.
Oh yeah, this is a pretty plug and play kind of thing.
Perfect. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Thank you on behalf of all of our parks, buildings, and grounds employees, and that's the end of new business.
Thank you. That will go to the fiscal officer's report, Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize the payment of pending warrants in the amount of $617,812.
So moved. Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
I'll move on fiscal officer number 3.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the investment report for June. The total interest for the month was $14,285.18, puts us at $73,703 for the first half of the year.
Good job, it's continuing to grow.
Benefits of an active involved
Yeah.
fiscal officer.
Yeah,
Very good, John.
yeah, good
Thank
job.
you.
Number 5.
Number 5 is the bank reconciliation for the month of June. If there's any questions, I'll be available after the meeting. Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for resolution to authorize a refund as follows for overpayments for emergency medical services as requested by Ohio Billing.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
So moved.
Been moved, I'll second. It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
That concludes the fiscal officer report.
Thank you. I think that takes us to the administrator. Back to you again.
Thank you. Administrator number 1 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to amend Resolution 16-640 passed on November 22nd, 2016, to change the salary split to admin 30%, zoning 10%, road 10%, park 10%, fire 30%, and to add the sheriff's department at 10% from Fund 09A10, effective 7/29/18 for the career captain of communications and safety position.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
Yes, when I was reviewing the budget, and we've had some time to work with the IT and communications safety position, I realized that the fire department was paying for the brunt of the salary, and we as a team redistributed it a little more fairly.
And it just makes sense.
Makes sense,
You know,
yeah.
because everybody
Everybody's
has
using it.
media issues, phone issues, computer issues, data issues, so it just makes sense.
Yes.
And it's nice having somebody in-house that can take care of it immediately.
That's right.
Doesn't say Tommy's been doing it except.
Yeah.
Tom was great,
He's at Cub Scout meeting tonight.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
That was-
Just kidding, Mr.
Yes.
Hayes.
Don't want to embarrass you. Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And thank you to Mr. Haynes, again, who, he does come in at any time. He's come in early, he's stayed late, he's come in on the weekends to do projects and not, put in for extra pay or overtime, or so we appreciate it.
Good job. Next is fire. Go to Chief Schallenberg.
Thank you. Item number 1 is our monthly report. We did have some shots there on the cover from the road department partnered with us for our trench rescue class, so that's the Vector in action, getting them some training too, and part of us.
Vectors could be a huge resource under certain circumstances when you have trench cave-ins. Because no fire department brings that kind of equipment with them ever. So I'm glad you guys interacted doing that. Because that had to help both of us, both fire and road.
Sure.
And, gave those guys, because, there's some things that they work around under those circumstances, so. And then what's the other picture? That was, safety city, that's what I thought.
Yeah, over 100 students this year.
Any questions? Next.
Item number 2, Resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to accept the resignation of Michael Lowmiller as Plain Township career firefighter effective August 2nd, 2018 at 700 hours due to retirement. Mike will receive retirement items per provision 25 of section 8 for the collective bargaining agreement.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion. Actually, I'll start off. You know, we are slowly now seeing that second generation. This is the second one of that second generation of people that we hired. And obviously, there's a couple more from that group that are knocking on the door. So, you know, Mike was with us for a long time. And most of these people actually came from came and transitioned from our volunteer organization. So Mike's been with us a long time. I just wish him the best in retirement. And it's sad, but it's, you know, it's
Bittersweet.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
Bittersweet, yes.
but you know they're gonna move on to other things as well. So
That's fortunate to have good employees that
Absolutely.
stay around that long, because sometimes you get them and they'll bounce around, so that role's not going to be exceptional, engaging, approachable.
And for some reason, it didn't come through to go on the scan. I've actually got the real letter here. I can just read it real quick. It's, on my screen, I can't see it too well. Anyway, with heavy heart, I announce my retirement from Plain Township Fire Department. It has been a pleasure working alongside you and many other friends. I call my brothers. As a lifelong resident of Plain Township, I am honored to have served my community for the past 30-plus years and proud to have done so. Yet the time has come to move on and begin a new venture in life. Please consider this my 2-week notice for retirement. Yeah, Mike's a good friend,
yeah.
always a good guy, and has done a lot of good work for Plain Township.
We agree. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
6:15.
Well, thank you. Okay, we'll stop there and move on to our 6:15 public hearing. And I'll turn that over to Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Tonight I'm presenting the 2019 proposed alternative tax budget. Everyone should have a copy of their chair. The board doesn't need to approve or vote on it this evening. Just presenting it to you to review, and we can do the approval next meeting. I'm available for any questions or concerns.
Anything specifically that you would point out that we should be looking at, or just scan the whole thing? This is nothing new. We do this every year.
Right, yeah, we always use conservative estimates, so there's
Okay.
no negative budget or adjustments at the end of the year.
Realistically, we may see a change on like some inside millage dollars based upon property.
Correct.
Reevaluations.
Correct.
And so forth, but nothing drastic.
Nothing drastic.
Okay. Any questions? So that closes that, and then we will return to fire number 3.
Thank you. Item number 3 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize payment to Hetler Engineering LLC for the sanitary sewer extension for design, engineering, and consultation work for the private line extension, which will have frontage to Plain Township Station 4, not to exceed $9,960.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. I know you have spent a lot of time on this.
Yes.
You have been,
over it.
yeah, you have been,
It's like an
you know,
engineer.
obviously you're trying to pull the project off, but you're also trying to work with all the neighbors to give them advantage of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've been back and forth working with some of those property owners. They seem to be totally satisfied with some of the things that are going to go on with the project. I don't think we've received one complaint regarding it, have we?
No, that's
No.
No, so, but I know you have agonized over this for a long time, and don't think it doesn't go unnoticed.
We're getting close.
Yeah.
I mean, we're, temporary approval at the county, so, you know, we're getting close to the end of the rainbow here, I guess
Yeah.
you'd say, so, to get the project going, so. And that's all engineering fees, consulting, you know, design plans, all that.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, she's not a pot of gold.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay, anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 4, resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize purchase and payment to CR Kurtz Heating and Cooling for AC repairs at Station 1 not to exceed $2,612.45.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And last item is a resolution to extend the offer of full-time employment to Joel Gladys and Ross Weimer for the position of probationary career firefighter paramedic contingent upon successfully completion of the Ohio Police and Fire medical examination and drug testing.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded, discussion. So the initial part-time hires is already paid off.
Yes, these are both part-time employees that will be moving to the full-time status. So we had a little time to evaluate them here, and with retirements and et cetera here, we've got some positions down to fill.
You know, hopefully, knock on wood, that system is just gonna kind of take care of itself, because, you know, you can sit across the desk from an employee and know all about their very specific credentials, but it's those soft skills also that come along with it, so, you know, obviously, you can evaluate those kinds of things as well, so. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes fire department.
Thanks, Chuck. That'll take us to Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is the monthly report for June.
Wow. Where was that at?
Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer, never mind. I see it.
There's one that crosses into the pond there. where we stop.
Yeah, there's a little difference using that PVC versus
Oh,
steel.
Oh, that's right, Jennifer.
Yeah,
Wow.
Your guys did that in-house.
yeah.
So nice job.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Joe, number 2.
Item number 2 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to contract with JP Striping and Services for the 2018 pavement marking program to be completed by September 21st, 2018, not to exceed $26,190.90.
Still moved. Mr. Lino, second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to authorize the purchase and installation of 3 new Boss 8-foot super steel snow plows with controllers for $5,049 each from Terry's Truck and Trailer for a total amount of $15,147 and 1 new truck craft steel dump bed from Terry's Truck and Trailer for $3,899 for a total of $19,046.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
These will be for the new pickups that will be coming in within the next couple of weeks.
A serious name to a boss.
They're the best.
Yeah.
They are. So, and we get parts right away. So,
Good.
locally.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And item number 4 is a resolution by the Board of Trustees to contract with Underground Services, Inc. to excavate and expose and remove damaged storm sewer pipe up to 20 feet, install up to 20 feet of 60-inch HDPE storm sewer pipe provided by the township on Scenic View Street where a sinkhole has formed, not to exceed $4,650.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion. That's a big pipe.
This is every bit of 10 to 11 feet deep. We don't have the equipment for the safety for the guys. The contractor will bring in the box and the big excavator. We have a plan of attack to fix this. This is the second time this has happened on that storm sewer project that we did back in the late 90s through Laurel Ridge.
Oh, I remember that.
For some reason, they either wasn't backfilled right or we got faulty material on this 54-inch pipe. So,
And that also was PVC, right?
yes.
So, you know, could be,
Something's,
yeah,
something's gone wrong at where they connect as a finders.
that is a big pipe.
Joe, sorry,
Go ahead.
would it save us money if we looked into buying one of those devices to put in a hole that big, or is it just like you know?
We have a cage, but it wouldn't hold that pipe.
It would hold that.
We don't usually have any problem with the pipe. that-
Yeah, for the frequency,
Yeah.
for the frequency of something like that.
It's just.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a cage for our equipment that we use, but we just don't.
Yeah, that would,
Something probably, it's not like you're doing
This
something.
is like the second time that we've done it.
Yeah, I would,
Okay.
you know, that's one of those cases, you know, high risk, low frequency.
Let the contractor.
That's
Yeah,
right,
that makes
where you don't do it very much, but there's way too much of a risk for, you know, what we're accustomed to.
Makes sense. We don't do it that much. I didn't know it was like two, so.
I-
Makes sense.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. That takes us to zoning. Mr. Farrar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the agenda is the monthly report.
Any questions? Number 2.
The item number 2 is a resolution to declare items A through C as nuisance abatements.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And item number 3 is a resolution to declare items A through H as abatement payments.
So moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And that will complete zoning for tonight.
Next time, that takes us to parks. Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Item number 1 is my monthly report.
Yeah, that's the way I'm doing.
Takes time.
A lot of scrolling there. Just give us a second to catch up. Sorry. Forgot there was a fast track.
I'll look at it. I'll be your wingman.
Thanks. I need one.
I was Mr. Hawes' wingman, I'll be your wingman.
Steady Eddie over there.
Anything specific? Okay, let's go to number 2.
Thank you. Item number 2, I'm going to kind of flop 2 and 3, just in order of immediacy. National Purple Heart Day will be celebrated along with a proclamation that you gentlemen passed in January for the Plain Township Purple Heart Day, which will be August 7th, 2018. But then we'll have some of our veterans and Purple Heart parking places up, and obviously you'll see the flag, and we'll certainly recognize the day and so on and so forth. I wanted to make a point of doing that because I don't think our next meeting comes till after that.
Correct.
As such, the next big market day is to celebrate National Farmers Market Week. That will be on Wednesday, August 8th from 4 to 7 at the park, Veterans Park. Come down and see us. The market has grown significantly. We have a lot of fun there every Wednesday night. And we are packing the place full, aren't we? And Joe, I promise you, and I'm coming through again, buddy, donuts tomorrow night, fresh fried donuts.
Gets that after he's done with his yoga class.
I had nothing to do with how we did it.
Not while they got phones.
So Chuck, would it be safe to say that we're gonna combine on our last
We have.
farmers market? We're gonna do the, since it's close enough to Fire Prevention Week, maybe Jessica come up and talk to you about our open house at the fire station that will coincide with our last farmer's market. So if we start getting the word out now, you know, because Touch a Truck was pretty successful,
That was, yeah.
and, you know, that was actually pretty neat. And you're right, these crowds, they're unbelievable.
Over 2,000 people.
Yeah.
Mhm. How many vendors?
We're in the 60s consistently.
Yeah. So we'll just get the word out early for that. Okay.
I think our activity there speaks volumes, because if you notice, Kansas trying to get back into the game, heavily advertising.
They have,
So-
and not to take anything away from anybody else, but we've got a great market manager, we work very well together, and the product is what I think we all envisioned it to be when we started this game. So we just look forward to continuing progress and success.
What was the date of our last one?
August 8th is the National Farmers Week, and September 26th will be the Fall Fest Fire Station Open House last March.
September 26th.
Yep.
That's correct.
4 o'clock.
So, thanks, Jessica.
We'd like that on the front page.
I want to put you on the spot.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be tomorrow's paper.
And that concludes parks, if you have nothing else for me.
Thank you. Law director, nothing. No, sir. Any communications, nothing. That takes us to the portion of our meeting of public speaks. If there's anybody in the audience that wishes to address the board, you can sit and speak, stand and speak, or come up to the podium, whatever you're comfortable with. But before you start, please give your name and address to our fiscal officer. Anybody wishing to address the board?
Yes. Tom Schillig, address 4221 Plain Center Avenue, Northeast, Canton, 44714.
Thank you.
Okay.
First of
Thank
all,
you.
before I get to my business, I want to say that my wife and I recently visited the Veterans Memorial. Beautiful, fine job was done, very touching. And we recently had an opportunity to take our granddaughter over to the splash pad over there. It was marvelous. It's both of those are just so nice. Little Sarah May had a great time.
Sarah May.
Yeah. My concern, earlier in 2018, the newsletter was talking about the yard waste recycling and how that's, I guess, coming to an end, it sounds like.
I wouldn't say coming to an end. It's always been funded by the Stark County Stark Wayne Tusk Joint Solid Waste District. And essentially there's a number of market-driven variables along with funding that have impacted what they're doing moving forward. So the Joint Solid Waste District they come here to a meeting. They actually were before the Stark County Township Association over at Pizzeria sometime back, talking about how they were reviewing the number of sites, and based upon funding, you know, hey, we have to promote recycling, but we don't have to technically offer recycling, was sort of the gist of it. And through that, they said, hey, we're going to do a site assessment on all these locations, Plain Township included. We originally had 2, now we're down to 1. But they were doing an analysis to determine, okay, with what funding we do have, essentially positioning these drop-off locations, where will they be? And then of those locations that we designate, which that funding had to go to Stark, Tusk, and Wayne. Ironically, Stark got, I think, 90% of the funding. Tusk got the rest, and Wayne got nothing, just based upon a number of factors that I won't digress into, but some of it's because of the work of the commissioners, and the commissioners actually worked to pump an extra $100,000 in to this year. So the communities that have the recycling locations were essentially, we were like given the equivalent of a block grant. So, okay, based upon your total ton, historical tonnage, as a percentage of the overall waste district, even knowing, you know, hey, some of these other locations are gonna close, we're gonna give you X dollars funding. Well, when that all come out, a couple of the locations said, you know what, hey, we're actually just not even gonna do it. So that funding that they received, it was some smaller locations, went back into the kitty now. Dave Held has essentially indicated they're gonna sit on it. You know, they'll wait until they see later in the fall. So, you know, Plain Township, as the other communities, is essentially going, okay, it's not that it was an open checkbook before, to where the bills just got sent over to Joint Solid Waste District, but they're really putting more of the management on the communities, along with the truly fixed or capped funding. So we essentially said, okay, we know what our experience is here. Outside of, you know, what a joke about, you know, if we shut that down, then we probably have, you know, pitchforks and fire after us before even our safety services. No disrespect to our fire and police, but it's just sort of what it. So we said to start out, okay, we were looking at Wednesday and Saturday. Was it Wednesday and Saturday? No. And then we said, no, we're gonna change it to Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, because you got the cleanup from the winter coming into spring, but then it does really taper down. But then in the fall, when the leaves are coming down like crazy,
That's my concern.
we're evaluating, because in the past where it was open just carte blanche 7 days a week, these containers are, you know, getting filled and coming and going. When the end of the funding dries up, it's not like the township has a funding mechanism outside of that available. Now, I say that and I sort of soften it a little bit with the aspect that we were told, hey, a major storm or something comes through, there's special funds. Now, where exactly those come through outside of passing through the Joint Solid Waste District, we don't know, but we're trying to be very prudent with those funds right now, so we know when we get hit, you know, later in the fall, okay, hey, it may not be 7 days a week, it may be 4 days,
Well,
it could be 5 days.
We are looking at that because you three said, sit down with Rob, with Joe, myself, and that's what we're looking at, and we're looking at, but we're not done, you know, possibly 5 days a week.
For the leaves.
Because it gets so busy, and if it's not 5 days, we're still gonna get the same volume, it'll just be harder to push it back and clean it up.
Yeah. Because see, we didn't know what to expect, you know, because before, everybody was doing it. But then, when it went, and they reduced the funding, there were some people that flat out said, we're out of the business now. So we're thinking, gee, what if all those people come over to our
That
side?
was my next question. My
See?
brother in Louisville called me the other day, wanted to know about, and I says, well, as far as I know, it's closed.
Yeah.
No, we've been.
Well, I
yeah.
knew it was
Yeah.
probably still running, but I didn't
We
know,
are.
but I didn't want him bringing his.
But he's-
even though he's not forever.
Protected your space.
He is allowed.
Oh, he is
because-
allowed?
Yes,
Oh,
because
yes.
it's funded by the Joint Solid Waste
Which
District,
is
not
county.
Plain Township, so it's.
We
he
just
is
have to
allowed.
be one of the host locations.
Well, see, I wouldn't take my stuff to Louisville because I just didn't think.
And
I
there,
was
I don't know,
well,
if there's
they'd be allowed
another
to.
joint solid, Jackson got out of the joint solid waste, they do their own, you have to show an ID there that you live there. Ours
Okay.
is still the same funding mechanism, like, Mr. Sable said, we're just monitoring it so we don't run out of money.
See, some of the issues, I mean, the Joint Solid Waste District, not that they're the back, they've actually done a lot to help with some of the gating and the security of the situation, because as you can imagine, unfortunately, that's intended for residential debris.
Right.
So you clean up your yard, and it's like it's in the back of a truck or an SUV or whatever, you know, it's not intended for Scott Hawes Landscaping
Right.
to be going over there and dumping it on unmarked trucks. And thanks to the surveillance system that we had in place, we've identified pretty quick some commercial dumpers, and our friends at the sheriff's office have been very nice and assertive in getting those folks back here, because the alternative consequences weren't going to be favorable. And we've since added some additional surveillance through Eric's efforts, where anything that comes in and out, we're getting license plates coming and going. So the gating is actually time-controlled access as well. So if you're in there and you're like, oh God, it's 6 o'clock, the gates are gonna close, am I gonna be stuck? No, there's sensors and stuff to allow out, but they help fund some of that through some additional grant funding as well to us. So it's really an unknown, and the difficult part is as we head into next year, they've already indicated the funding's gonna be reduced by $100,000. So there's gonna even be lesser dollars in the pool, but what they had committed to was to step back and review how have trends changed as far as where the disposal's going. Is more going up to Lake Township? Is more coming in to Plain Township? Because one of the arguments we made real early on was our other location that was held over at the Wursler Brothers, you know, the west side of the township. Unfortunately, those are good residents. Mr. Lino lives there, but sort of felt like they were getting treated, and even Mr. Haynes back there.
That apple and everything.
Yeah, they're getting treated like redheaded stepchilds to a degree, or feel like that, because, okay, well, I really don't want to have to drive through Jackson to get my yard waste. I don't want to have to drive all the way to the other side of Plain Township. You know, what's going on? And unfortunately, we've had to try to explain it, and, you know, the folks down in Canton Township, they've finally got gated and surveillance and so forth, but, you know, they essentially, when they were figuring the formula or the funding for us, they acted as if, what was it, 10 or 11% of total yard waste for the district went to Wursler Brothers. They didn't factor that in when we got our funding, and of course, trust me, I mean, we aggressively pursued that, and, you know, they come back and they slightly adjusted it, but it's still not proportionate to it. So at the end of this year, after, say, all the fall cleanup and so forth, and they go, okay, hey, the new dollar amounts $300,000 down from $400,000, and that 300 being split over the 3-county area, with 50% of it still being in Stark because of the efforts of the commissioners. We're realistically, you know, gonna have to probably put some tighter restrictions on it still, but it could be one of those things where our dollar funding may increase just because of the tonnage, but if they reduce more, you know, the number of locations plus the funding, we're still gonna, there's gonna be a bottleneck, is what it's gonna come down to. And really what it does is it puts a burden back on all of us as homeowners to have to privately contract with landscaping places to come out, clean this stuff up. So out of pocket. So it's sort of one of those where we can all argue at the end of the day, hey, those are taxpayer dollars coming from somewhere. However they get triaged up, and now you're taking it away. But unfortunately, there's some bureaucratic levels of stuff that we have no direct say or influence on, and we're just trying to keep attuned to it so we can optimize what hours of availability and access. I don't think, Eric, we haven't had any issues down there since all of the surveillance is going down.
It's been going pretty good. We caught somebody the other day coming in after we had a road egress, so you can't really, I mean, they should have known
That was
better.
landscaping, I think.
It was residential. But I mean, outside of that, and yeah, we had the sheriff's office ask somebody to kindly come back and pick up the debris that they had dropped as a commercial dumper, which they did. They picked it all back up and then some. So with the exception of those 2 incidents, no, it's been great.
So we have, is that helping? I know that.
Well, so what you're saying is, as far as through this fall season, we're gonna have pretty much what it's been in the past, maybe limited more as far as the number of days, but you'll still be able to drop off down the road.
Yeah, you still be able to. We may have, at a certain point, if the funding runs out and we're told that we're not being awarded any additional funding, we may have to cut it off at that point, because unless we get a money tree somewhere that can go out and shake, once those resources are used up from the Joint Solid Waste District, sort of.
Well, so this year is probably not gonna be an issue, but possibly next year, maybe.
Well, there's still funding, I think, for next year.
Well, there's still funding for next year, but it's gonna be reduced by $100,000.
And we may, just like we did this year, you know, none of us are experts in how can we make this work, because believe me, we got a lot of emails about how we should do this, and no two of them are the same. You know, which would, pretty much show you that people are all over the page about what's the perfect days and times to have it. Now, we also have to kind of coordinate that with our road department and how they're available to be able to do it. So, we're kind of monitoring what takes place, but we do know people eventually will get in the habit of doing something. So I'm guessing if the funds are cut next year, we'll probably cut back on the number of days. But we'll still do it. We're still going to do it. It's just, maybe people will get frustrated and take it somewhere else. But, we'll just try to deal with the money that we have, that we're given by, because we're pretty tight in terms of being able to fund that out of the general fund.
Okay, I was prepared to make a suggestion. If things get too bad, could it be even if it was a fee-based service? If I bring my 5x9 foot trailer over here stuffed with leaves, if you charge me $10 or $20 to unload it, that's fine with me. I didn't know if that's even a possibility.
You're not the first one to suggest that.
Yeah.
Okay? We did get that suggestion as well.
Yeah.
And we discussed it, but we have to kind of think, what would the logistics be? Do we have somebody down there with do we have somebody that comes up here and pays first and shows up down there? But that would mean you have to have somebody down there collecting that to validate that.
Right, yeah.
So, thanks for that suggestion. And it might be something, because we've already talked about it. It's a lot of those issues. We know it's a pretty good service.
As you say, the road departments, now Joe's talked with the neighboring road departments on even joint purchases of equipment so you can help shred that down so it compacts better, so we can get essentially more tonnage within those containers, because that volume tends to fill it out relatively.
Yeah, we're charged per container that they take, and
It's not about a pound, it's about a container.
yeah, it's not a container.
The door may be able to spring up and get that in there.
You can get it up the lift different.
Yeah.
All good ideas.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Don't hesitate
Yeah.
to call back in if you're looking for, hey, have the hours changed here for the fall, or is there anything new? We'll be able to,
We've been working on that.
Yeah, we're hopeful to present our suggestion for the hours and when what we call fall yard waste will start.
There'll be, when's the next scheduled newsletter?
It will go out in October.
Oh, okay, so we'll already be well into that.
We'll also have it on the website.
Yeah.
In our social media.
Yeah, and, yeah.
And you can
Yeah,
always
we will.
call the hall.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Okay, then takes us to the approval. Oh, I'm sorry, do we have any concerns of trustees? Nobody said anything? Fiscal officer?
No concerns.
Okay, that takes us to the approval of minutes of July 10th, 2018. And I will so move for approval.
second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes. So we do have a need for an executive session. Be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 6:48 p.m. from this regular meeting of July 24th, is authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of consideration of 1A, appointment of a public employer official, 1B, appointment of a public employer official, 1D, discipline of a public employer official, 1E, promotion or demotion of a public employer official, and 1F, compensation of a public employer official.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.